Oh, hi there. I'm Brian Guest, and you're listening to my fantastic interview with Elaine Goodman on gogoodman.com.au.
The thing I found interesting about you from my first glance, most of your film and TV credits over your career have been drama-based. You've appeared in some of the biggest dramas on TV, and I guess you're happy to agree with that, like Narcos, NCIS, Torchwood, Shameless, and your latest credit on Unsolved, which we'll talk about shortly. However, you have this side that's interested in comedy sketches and improv and stand-up. What came first for you?
Yeah.
Was it a passion to become an actor's actor, or was it an interest in or love of comedy, which can stem from childhood? And most comedians that I've interviewed, it has stemmed from childhood or their parents.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
So where do you want to start, Brian?
I mean, a few things, I suppose.
I mean, it's a loaded question, but yeah, that's the starting point.
Yeah. We're going right now, right? We're recording.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Great. So I think, I come from a big, giant Irish extended family. My mom is the oldest of 12 children.
Here we go. This is what I want.
Yes, the goods. So I have literally too many to count first cousins. I think 30 or 40 on my mom's side alone. So anytime you are in that environment, everyone's sort of jockeying for position to talk or to perform or to be funny or to tell a joke. And, it's crazy, how much I think I learned as a child watching, my aunts and uncles do little routines in the living room or just telling jokes around the table. So I think comedy was a big part of my childhood. Also I was, not to get dark, but I was bullied. I got bullied a lot in grade school. And I feel like a big way I tried to, to sway people or to
compensate,
have people like me was to tell jokes. And so for better or for worse, that's sort of where I found my early comedy voice.
Did you feel that tactic worked?
Until I was getting punched in the face by Jeremy Smith in the 8th grade recess yard.
Where is Jeremy Smith now? Where is Jeremy Smith?
Yeah, where's that guy now? He's not doing a podcast.
Yeah, right.
Jeremy Smith.
Did you actually know where he is?
Actually, I have no idea where that guy is.
Oh.
I hope he's listening at home and enjoying this.
Yeah.
So it worked. I guess it worked for the most part. And then when I was older, I think I found myself as a serious actor. I moved out to Los Angeles around 2001, and then I studied as much as I could from Jeff Goldblum was one of my first acting teachers, which is amazing.
Not bad.
Yeah, and I dove deep into Sam Shepard plays and David Mamet and all that kind of stuff. So I was very into the gritty and dark and sort of expressive and family sort of messed up family dynamic father son stuff, which is where I sort of gravitated towards as an up and coming actor, I guess.
Right. So the way I can kind of compare this to is when you watch, for example, a show like The Voice, the people that do rock and roll in the blind auditions never continue doing rock and roll. They're always forced to do these emotional songs and bring out their emotions, and the coaches are all big on bringing out emotions and finding songs that you can connect to and blah 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 this, connect to blah 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 that, because emotions is what music is all about. When you had comedy as a background from an Irish family and then moved to LA and went into that dark kind of, is that kind of what an actor's actor is all about? They've got to be able to get into that dark space to bring out their true acting ability. Is that kind of what did it feel like you were kind of leaving comedy behind, or did you feel like you were progressing as an actor?
I think they're just different phases of my life. Right now I think I am heavily into comedy as far as like performing and writing, and I do improv comedy here in Los Angeles. And I'm pretty ingrained in that scene. Other parts of my life I feel like I was more interested in the dramatic side. So I feel like it's just different waves of my life, and I think in the future I would like to get back to that. I would like to get back to like when I carve out more of my comedy niche in the entertainment biz. I suppose I would like to get back to that dark side of myself. But they both like sort of ping pong off each other. My truth and my voice, I think, sort of carries both of those things. I like to play things real, and I like to, be truthful with all of my work. And so there's a lot of truth in comedy,
Right. So let's get into your current role before we get back into comedy and improv and some sketches
Sure.
that you've done, and you've even made a name for yourself in Australia, apparently.
I have. Uh-huh.
Yep. Your latest role is in a series called Unsolved, the murders of Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G. What role do you play, and what have you learned about America's addiction to crime shows and crime reenactments or recreations?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm kind of on a bit of a crime binge as well through Netflix. We get a lot of American crime shows and crime recreation shows through Netflix as well, and it seems like America has this obsession with crime.
Yeah, they are. We are. I don't know why we are so obsessed. Maybe because there's so much crime in America. I don't, it's a reflection of, it's like art imitating life, and I don't know what that is. I might think it has something to do with like the sensational nature of our news, and I feel like a lot of that came from the OJ sort of trial. We as Americans were glued to the TV every day when that trial was happening, and I think that's why the OJ True Crime series was such a big hit. Which Anthony Hemingway, who was a director producer on that, is also a director producer on Unsolved, and so I think that's a huge benefit for Unsolved to have him sort of at the helm of this thing. He's so fantastic. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's just a great person and a great director, and I think that's why the OJ thing was such a hit. And so I think Unsolved is gonna do really well.
Just
crazy,
before we get into your character, I have a theory on that whole OJ thing. I have a theory that it's just another way for the Kardashians to get on TV.
It wouldn't be. And I wouldn't disagree with you. I wouldn't disagree with you on that.
Right. So who do you play in Unsolved?
Unsolved. So I play a U.S. attorney named Tim Seawright, who's based on a real guy, and he is sort of in charge of prosecuting another case, a trial of a man named George Torres, who was a supermarket mogul, charged with, racketeering, conspiracy for murder, and, a host of other crimes. And so the lead detective, Greg Kading, who's played by Josh Duhamel, he's sort of ping-ponging back and forth on both of these cases, the Christopher Wallace, Notorious B.I.G., and the George Torres case. And so he sort of gets engulfed in a little bit of some heat on the George Torres case. So that's why the role of Tim Seawright is relevant to the Biggie murder.
did you get to meet the person your character is based on?
I didn't get to meet him. I did get to talk extensively with Greg Kading, who is the one of the producers on the show. He was the lead detective at the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, that was investigating the murder of Christopher Wallace. And so I got to hear from his perspective, who Tim was and, what his deal was. And, Greg wrote the book, the book Murder Rap, basically his theory of what happened to Biggie. So, and that's essentially, what the show is his perspective on what happened to Biggie. And you can't get that perspective from a better guy. Like, he's the guy that was on the case, so I trust him.
This story has been recounted time and time again in movies and in TV. It's one of those stories that, because it's never been solved, there's always a different angle and there's always recreations. Yeah. What makes this adaptation different?
I think how clearly it's spelled out. There's a lot of pieces to the story. And I was into the story before I became involved with Unsolved. I grew up, liking Tupac and Biggie's music, and certainly was invested as a fan when they were both murdered. Coupled with, I do have this fascination with all of America, I suppose, with crime dramas, and so I had read the book Murder Rap, and I had seen the documentary, and I had seen All Eyes on Me, and I had seen some other documentaries about the case, and so I knew what some of the theories were. I think sometimes the simplest explanation is the best, and I think that's what Greg does well, is he explains it pretty simply of what happened.
And yeah, so my next question is, do you remember much about the investigation at the time? And you said you do. So from what you remember to now that you're in a show that's recreating it, how has your perspective changed? Do you feel it's all familiar to you being in a production based on it? Or are there parts that you didn't know happened, or that you didn't look too deeply in when you were a fan back when it actually happened?
Oh, it's so hard to remember back then. It's so long ago. Let's see.
What was your age? What was your age range back when it happened? I think it was 94 or something.
Yeah, so I was in high school or something like that.
High school, yeah.
So I didn't know much early on, because I wasn't so invested. I was a teenager, and I knew there were theories that the LAPD was involved. I wasn't sure how much I believed that, but I wasn't to say it wasn't true. Then there's all these theories that Tupac is hanging out on the beach in Cancun, and there's these wild sort of theories to what happened. There was a documentary I saw about Russell Poole's investigation, and he was the original detective on the case, I believe back in '97. And so Russell was very into the theory that the LAPD was, involved in covering up, and certainly, being involved in the murder. So, that's sort of what I remember from my teenage years. And then flashing forward to now, first off, it's very strange to be involved in a TV show about a pop icon, two pop icons, really. And being a fan of those icons is also strange. And then, then you think about these people were friends at some point, and they were murdered. You're essentially like telling a story for people's entertainment viewing that people were murdered on. So when you're doing that, I feel like you have to raise your level of attention and detail and acting, because you want to get it right so bad, you know, because a lot of these people, friends, family, fans, are so invested in this story that you don't want to mess it up for them. So, so I was pretty invested in this show.
And what about the feeling of being a fan of Tupac and Biggie as a teenager, but then coming onto the set and seeing actors portray them? Is that a strange feeling when you knew them as a teenager? Or kind of knew them as a fan of as a teenager?
Yeah, it's trippy. I mean, it's real trippy. Like, Mark, who plays Tupac, looks identical to Tupac. And Wavy Jones, who plays Biggie, does a fantastic job. It's very, very strange to be in a show like this. Strange in a good way. You know, it's just, life is weird. You know, at one point, you know, you're auditioning for a show, and at another point, you're on a TV set playing a part in a story that you remember as a child. It's, you know, it's a true story, you know? So, yeah, it's weird.
That's part of being in Hollywood. You never know what you're going to be up for next. And there's that nostalgic feeling as well, which I love. Like, being in something, and even I get that when I'm interviewing people that I grew up with. I've interviewed people that were actors on Power Rangers, and that is really strange to know that they're all out in the convention circuit and still kind of relying on that character and loving that character, because it gets them out to all those fans that are now in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're out there meeting them all. It's really strange. Yeah. It's strange, for sure. Power Rangers. Oh, what a good one. What a great one. Exactly. Oh, and haven't even touched on, like, the Nickelodeon era. Like, I've done so much of that as well, and it's just crazy. And 90s sitcoms, you name it. Like, it's really strange to have people reflect back, but that's a nostalgic feeling that is addictive. Yeah, it's weird sometimes. Like, you know, I've been lucky enough to be acting for a while now, and I've gotten act with some, you know, you talk about interviewing people that, you know, you grew up with, you know, watching them on TV and whatnot. Like, I did Leslie Nielsen's last movie. I was lucky enough to be a part of. And so that's crazy. Like, when, you know, it was sad because, like, he was so old and frail when he was doing it. And, you know, I had this picture in my mind of, like, young, sprightly Leslie Nielsen from, like, Airplane or from, you know, the Naked Gun movies. Like real slapstick kind of throwing himself around. Yeah. And so that's sort of like one of those moments in your career when you're, like, pinching yourself of, like, is this really happening? Like, am I really on set with this guy that, or woman that, you know, I so admire their work? And yeah, it's definitely I definitely feel lucky and blessed to be able to have that experience of working with these people. Yeah. I want to touch on your comedy videos too. Some of your video titles, I've watched them as well, and they're quite funny because they're just like, you're taking the piss out of yourself, and it's like the actors around you are trying to act like they don't realize that, even though it's all obviously scripted. So some of your videos are Australian Pilot Season, American Diaper, and Sexual Harassment Orientation, and Don Cheadle is Captain Planet. Where do you get your ideas from? Yeah, my weird mind. Yeah, that Captain Planet one went downhill real quick.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I like to try to say something with my work, and just try to take a funny angle at something that's going on. Like there was this one that I did about a a little league baseball player who is dominating his little league because he's on steroids, and essentially it's me playing like a 9-year-old, and I'm 6'3", 210 pounds of muscle, and so it's me playing little league baseball in this tight uniform with like a bunch of other real 9-year-olds, and so it's a ridiculous sort of sight and a ridiculous sort of video, and it's funny because it's like based in reality of all these Major League Baseball players who were trying to lie about doing steroids, and of course they're doing steroids, So it's like you can't lie when the truth is just like hitting you in the face. And so yeah, I try to I try to think of what's currently going on in our culture and sort of take a funny take on it.
Are you on the badmouth Trump bandwagon, or is that bandwagon full by now?
I might be driving that bandwagon. I'm not a big Trump fan. Let's just say that. I think it's a bad representation of. He's like a conglomerate of all the bad parts of every human being.
But there's not being a Trump supporter, but there's also being out and out an anti-Trump person, and then writing skits and making skits and making all your content all about being anti-Trump.
Yeah.
So that's where.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't want to overexert my energy into him because I'm sick of him, literally like sick of this guy. And there's so much content out there about making fun of Trump, or not making fun of him like in a bad way, but making fun of like what a bad person he is, I feel like. And there's Saturday Night Live, and there's the Comedy Central has a show called the President Show, and there's a Stephen Colbert cartoon. There's so much content out there about Trump,
and even all the monologues on the like late night shows. 90% of them are about Trump.
Is a monologue about Trump, and we're spending so much time on him because it's so ridiculous. Literally, just the reality of our life right now.
At what stage is enough, and you just need to just kind of, I don't want to say acknowledge that the guy is going to be there to the end of his term, but you kind of hope he would be, because the only other way is like you don't want that to happen to him. But you've got to come up with other content, because the viewer is just going to get bored of the same thing being recreated over and over again about the same kind of situation. And even like
I think that's where we're at.
Colbert makes jokes about all different, like even like state politicians, and it's like it's comedy that the rest of the world can't really get behind, because like those shows are almost international shows now. They're being shown all around the world, so you can't really have comedy that's all about American politics, because a lot of the viewers aren't based in America and don't really know that much or care that much. Yeah, it is true. Like, those shows are international. I wonder how, like, it's good to hear your view on that, because I'm curious to see like the perspective on that. I think one positive part of that is just to know, letting the international community know that we're not all crazy Americans and we're not supportive of this person. So the fact that there is these, outlets and comedy voices like Fallon and Colbert and Conan or whatever, like spouting off like how much they think this president is ridiculous, is actually the majority of how Americans feel.
You know,
But
so
when, but
that
when,
is a
yeah.
positive.
So, but when is it enough? Because there's been 90% of monologues have been about Trump for the last 3 years. Like, there's got to be
Yeah.
more going on around the world that they can touch on, and they can like brighten up the show a little bit more, as opposed to making it all about trying to make this man look bad. Because that's kind
I'm
of
with you.
it's kind of negative comedy, which you can get sick of
Yeah.
after a while because it's so repetitive and everyone's doing it.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Like, I feel the same way, and that's pretty much why I like haven't done any sort of like political Trump comedy recently. I mean, if you take a look at my Twitter's hilarious, and I do go after Trump quite a bit, but that's the extent of it. That's the extent of like where I go. Minimal effort with my two thumbs.
I'm so glad you're modest as well.
It's my best quality.
Yeah, no, I'm not arrogant. I know I'm the best.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my line. Your Australian pilots.
I like it. I might steal it.
Go ahead.
FYI.
Make it big. I'm not arrogant. I know I'm the best. Your Australian pilot season sketch went viral and got you attention from Australia. So I think you're on the Today Show as well. Are Australian actors really taking over Hollywood? And if they are, why are they still being made to use an American accent on screen? I
think, like, I did that video a couple years back, and so it was a big, huge thing. Like, I think every year that they hire new actors for TV shows is called pilot season. So I don't know how familiar you or your listeners are with that. So it's called pilot season when they hire all these new actors for TV shows. And so this one year, I feel like the feedback from every meeting, from every producer, from every audition that I went on was like, "You're great. You were fantastic. It came down between you and another guy." And every single time it was an Australian actor, like literally every time. And like to the point where it was like, my life was a living comedy. So I was like, I've got to just write this down. Like I gotta turn this into something. So it was true. Like a lot of the actors that year were Australian, and Australian. It's not taking anything away from like Australian actors because they're great. It's just, but when it gets to the point of absurdity in your own life, of like it could have been to the point of sorry, I'm watching my daughter. My daughter's like outside on my porch right now, like looking through the window. Sorry. So it got to the point of like absurdity, where in my life it could have been like, hey, you're auditioning for the role of Brian Guest, and an Australian actor will book that job, So it was crazy. Yeah, and I think that trend is sort of continuing. There's a lot of great Australian actors that are being cast in TV shows right now.
So then why are they being made to use an American accent?
I think it's just fancy. I think it's fancy that an Australian can do an American accent, number one. And also I think it's like the grass is greener on the other side sort of thing from producers of like, oh, they're a foreigner, they're from Australian, or they're from Australia. They, it's like a great shiny object that you can have a part of your show when, it's not so in to like hire an American. And I have to imagine it's probably like that if I traveled to Australia, or if I traveled to like England or like somewhere in Europe to work, it would be fancy to have like an American there, So I think that's just what it is.
But I'm trying to think of an analogy of it, and all I can think of is food. If you like get a burger that you want the burger because you like the taste of the burger, but then you like drench it in all different sauces and completely destroy the natural taste of the burger, why get the burger in the first place? I don't know if that makes sense. That's just the first thing that came to my head.
I love this analogy. I don't know if it makes sense either, but I love it. I love it.
Like, you're getting a product that's ready-made.
Am I the burger in this analogy?
Hang on. So the burger is the Australian actor, and it's already ready-made. Okay. So the burger has come in, and you've got the burger in front of you, and you're just adding on extra things on top of that when the burger is already ready-made, and you're buying it because it's that burger, rather than adding things to it to make it completely different than what the original product was.
I can't get behind this analogy because I desperately want to be the burger.
Okay, hang on. So I want to figure out which part you are in this. You're the thing that misses out. You're kind of the hot dog that doesn't get credit because the burger. Are you happy being a hot dog?
I just want to be a piece of meat so bad.
So like,
I don't care if it's a hot, like a crappy hot dog that's like a conglomerate of a different bunch of meats. But man, I would love to be. If you say I can be a hot dog, I'll take being a hot dog.
Right, so you're this hot dog that used to be the big thing because Americans love hot dogs. So and because it's an American,
they're so good.
It's an American product. But so you can be the hot dog that everyone used to love. But then this big crazy Aussie burger came into town, and now everyone loves that. But they're trying to make it still taste like the hot dog when they can buy the hot dog. But they're getting the burger instead and trying to make it taste like the hot dog. I think that's right.
But look at me. I can be a hot dog with some bacon and some cheese on it. Look at me. Look how fancy I am now. And still the fancy Australian burger comes in and just, that's the one that's going to be eaten every time. Oh.
But yeah, I know. But so then why change the taste of that Australian burger to make it taste like the hot dog when you're getting that Australian burger because it's different? Why do you want to make it like the hot dog when you can just go back and get the hot dog?
And see, this right here.
Does that make sense?
Is why I wrote my sketch. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Now that we've talked it out, it completely makes sense.
So then what's the answer?
I still don't know.
It makes... Oh my God.
I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time, by the way.
That's the analogy. That's the best analogy I've ever come up with.
I love it. I love it.
Can you tweet that and ask your Twitter followers why they don't just get the hot dog instead? I want to follow that tweet and see what happens.
We're going to follow this. We're going to tweet it out. We're going to follow the results and have like an international poll
and then
why.
Then your followers are going to be like, what the hell is Brian on? Is he that out of work?
You see that? Is he that desperate? He's going to this analogy. What is he talking about?
They're going to think you're going from like bagging out Trump to like, why is the burger getting all the work?
I see all the tweets about Trump. Where did this hot dog hamburger tweet come from? I don't get it.
I like it. Oh my God. I just created a trend. Now I know what this feeling is. This is what you strive for on social media. You need to create a trend.
We've done it.
Now, I still have like 6 questions, so let's leave that in the background. Let's see.
It better be 6.
Yep. Let's see if we can get the hot dog or the burger into every question.
Okay, great. I hope we can.
When you're making comedy sketches and videos, what's your process? How do you gauge if it's a successful skit? Do you aim your humor at a certain crowd or demographic, or do you just go with what you know and hope it gets hits?
If my mom likes it, it's all worth it.
Yeah. All right, next question.
She hates my comedy, by the way.
Does she really?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay, good.
Very supportive.
Right,
how do I determine if it's successful? I think first, I make the content for myself. Like I'll just be honest. Like if I'm not laughing and having a good time, then it's painful and sort of an arduous process to go through to make something. So why do it? And you can't always count on the results of numbers like of how many people have viewed it, and what's the sort of like, is it getting likes on Facebook, or is it getting, is it voted funny on Funny or Die, or whatever it is. You can't really go off of that. You just have to like go off your instinct and see if it makes you laugh, and see if it is something that you would want to watch. That's sort of my take on it. Whether it's successful, I guess, or not.
When you started making comedy sketches back in the early 2000s, and that was when you moved to LA, you said, was YouTube a big deal? How has the internet changed the game of comedy in terms of the ease of getting content out to the crowd that you're aiming for?
I feel like if you're an actor or a writer or comedian, and you're not making stuff and throwing it on the internet, like, what are you doing? You have free distribution. And when I was sort of coming up as an actor, the internet was barely a thing, and so YouTube and all those other sites sort of like were groundbreaking, because you could like go actually out there into the world and film something and put it online. Up until that point, it was like, oh, you had to go through a process to like try and find a platform to show your work. So yeah, it changed the game. I feel like, as far as people doing their own thing and putting things online.
Do you think is it hard to gauge who's watching your stuff from that, or are you just looking at the hits, hoping that the hits going up? Because even like full-on career YouTubers, because something like the algorithms or whatever that means changes on YouTube all the time, they have to try and keep up with how to kind of promote their videos and get them a lot of hits, because the method they use needs to change constantly. But if you're doing it for fun, are you just hoping that you're going to get some hits on it? Or are you actually... I'm sort
of just trying to tap into something. I'm sort of just trying to tap into, something that's going on culturally. And if that's the case, I think I'll get some eyes on it. I'll get some hits or some shares or whatever it is. But if it's not relevant, I feel like, sort of what's the point for me to do something anyway. I'll watch anything, but I think if you're going to get some traction on your material, then it should have like an interesting point of view and should be relevant to what people are talking about or what people want to see. Yeah, I don't know about. I'm not too concerned about the hits. And there are a lot of people that are, a ton of people like are making so much money on their YouTube channels and pumping out videos, like sometimes like 2 or 3 videos a day. And that's not my jam. Like, that's not my thing. And I'm not knocking those people, but it's just a different sort of path for creating content. I'd rather stick to a video here and there than just pumping out a ton of material at a time.
Right. So, oh my God, I have another analogy. So, your full-time job...
Hot dogs and hamburgers only, please. Only hot dogs and hamburgers.
No, this one's a lot worse, but it still might hold up.
Okay.
This one isn't food. So acting is your full-time job, but YouTube is like your Uber. So people might use YouTube or Uber as their full-time job, but you just want to use it as a side job just to earn that little bit of extra kind of promotion or a little bit of extra money on the side and keep it fun.
I don't even maybe look at it even as Uber. It's more like my weekend. If my 9 to 5 is Monday through Friday acting, then maybe my Saturday, Sunday is my passion or my hobby that I do,
Just by the way, have you unlocked the door to let your daughter back in yet?
No, I don't know where she is. She's probably out. She's fine. I mean, there's a giant street across the way, but I'm sure she's fine.
Oh, God.
I mean, there's cars honking and people yelling for me to come outside, but I'm sure she's fine right now.
Right, the bloody American hot dogs. All right, so now, now that you've got more than a decade of experience, almost 2 decades, that's got to be hard to believe, of experience behind you. Where do you want your career to go? Do you want to be a more dramatic actor or a comedy actor, or is it possible to be 50-50?
I think right now my focus is very heavily on comedy. You know, and it's sort of a conundrum because I do have a lot of drama credits. I think it's possible to do both. Like, I think I'm just carving out my own trajectory and my own career path. I think everyone's career looks different and, you know, happens differently. It happens differently for different people. I think, you know, I admire, like, I admire, like, Jim Carrey, who is such a fantastic comedian. And then you look at him and he's also, like, a fantastic dramatic actor. And he's so brilliant and so smart and talented in different ways. I mean, he paints these amazing paintings, you know, and it has such a point of view on the political spectrum. And if you've listened to him talk, you know, he's done a couple, like, of these, in America, they have, like, when you graduate college, you get a speaker to come to your college, and he's done a couple of these speeches that have been recorded, and they're just so fantastic. And so I love actors like that. Comedian like Robin Williams. I mean, a guy that is just off the charts funny.
And he won an Oscar as a dramatic actor.
And he won an Oscar as a dramatic actor. And so, like, then he's off the charts like that, and so unexpected and brilliant in his own way. And also, like, there is a twinge of darkness in both of those people, you know? And I think being able to access that as an artist, or to, you know, to draw from your past is it's special. And I think that's definitely influenced their comedy. You know, it for sure has. But it also provides them a wealth and, like, a well to draw from as a dramatic actor as well.
But then that dark side is, like, full-on depression, addiction, mental health problems.
Yeah.
And that's
Sure.
that's ultimately what killed Robin Williams. Like, how dark.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have that darkness in order to draw from it, but you need to also be able to control it so it doesn't take over your own life. And Jim Carrey has struggled with that, and Robin Williams ultimately lost the battle. So how dark can you go, and how dark do you want to go in order to create that? Is that something you have to consider, or is that something that happens naturally?
I think, first off, being willing and open to go there is certainly a part of the journey as an actor. You know, and I don't know what the end result of that looks like. But I'm certainly, like, willing to try and to go there with being as real and truthful with myself and what I can bring to anything that I do, you know. And I think no matter how dark it is, no matter what it means, I think that's the job of an artist, is to go there, you know. Right.
Now, what we know, you've got Notorious. Sorry, not Notorious. It's called Unsolved coming up. Where can people watch that?
People can watch that on the USA Network, 10 p.m., I believe. I'm not sure what the international time is on that, but here in the States, it's 10 p.m. So, and I hear rumblings that it could be available on Netflix very soon, so that would be nice. But if not, I think you can find it online as well, on the USA Network website.
Is it an aim for you to get something on Netflix?
That is certainly an aim for me to get something on Netflix. If Netflix is listening, I'd like them to put any and all of my work on their platform. Netflix, I expect a phone call. and I want an in-depth conversation about hot dogs and hamburgers when you call, please.
You have got to, like, that's a sitcom idea. I mean, you could call it, like, food is life, and everything that happens to you in life, you then have a scene at the end. You know how, like, in Third Rock from the Sun, they always had a scene at the end on the roof, reminiscing about what happened that day? You could have a scene at the end where you're, like, in a cafe, and you're, like, playing with your food, and the chip could be like the manager that you didn't get the job from, and then the burger could be like you, and then you go in, the burger goes into the chip, and then you eat the whole thing. So that means you're in charge of your own destiny. That's a sitcom.
I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna give you 0 credit because I'm so evil.
I'm just happy if you're happy.
I'm kidding. We're going to share the credit, and we're going to make millions, and we're going to put it on Netflix, and everyone's going to be happy.
Can you imagine? But, like, seriously, if that would work, like, there needs to be First of all, we need more sitcoms, because this multi-camera sitcom genre is dying, and it needs to be recreated. Second of all, we need something that involves
I agree
food.
With you.
Because everything's too...
Are you hungry? I get the feeling that you're hungry right now. Have you eaten?
I'm always hungry. I'm hungry for knowledge and success, Brian. But seriously, like, we need something that's more slapstick. All these sitcoms are dialogue-oriented. That's where the humour comes from. You need something like there was back in the 90s, like full-on Home Improvement where he's falling off ladders. You need something that's slapstick-based. I mean, how much
time... interesting. I feel like it's such a big... a lot of American comedy doesn't translate well with international audiences because they are so dialogue heavy, I feel like. And the things that sort of do get sort of sweeping praises, like is slapstick comedy, because it's such like a universal form of comedy. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's why I love the 90s sitcoms. I've never really got on board with, like, Modern Family. Big Bang Theory I like, but that's very dialogue heavy as well. But apart from that, like, Last Man Standing was good. That's Tim Allen's one. I love Tim Allen because he is from that.
I can tell you referenced several of his projects. You're a huge Tim Allen fan.
Oh, definitely. I love Tim Allen. And I hope he gets back on TV in one way or another, or back in movies as well. But, you know, Home Improvement is one of my favourite sitcoms because it doesn't rely on relationships or chemistry between the characters as much as it relies on that slapstick factor. And that's what we need to create with food.
It's funny.
What are we going to call it, Brian? We are going to scare your publicists to hell and back when they listen to this interview. So what are we going to call this sitcom? Food is Life.
Totally. Food is Life, starring Tim Allen as Brian Guest.
All right, yeah. Okay. That'd be great. Well, could you star in it? Do you want to be the star, or do you want to write it and direct it and do everything, and then I can, like, be in Australia and, like, give you an applause?
I mean, like, I can write it, I can produce it, I can write myself into it, but it's either Tim Allen or an Australian actor that's going to play me. I mean, that's just what it's
yeah, right. You need to have a burger in it. You need to have the burger eating a burger. I think that, I need to see you write this reference somewhere for people to see, so that I can see if it takes off. Because if I write it, people are going to think I'm nuts.
I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna post. I'm gonna start a hashtag.
Yep.
Hot dog and a hamburger. That's all I've got. I don't have much.
Hang on. The hashtag can be the burger is the new hot dog.
Burger's the new hot dog.
Burger's the new hot dog.
Okay. I can work with that.
So anyway, to get this back on the straight and narrow, where can people find you?
People can find me. Well, I'm in Los Angeles right now. I don't want to give you my address, and if you came, you'd just see my daughter, like, banging on my door right now. Dad, please let me in.
It's out on the street in her pajamas, running around in circles with a hula hoop, trying to get in the chimney.
People can find me on the internet. My handle, most places, is brguest20. So, Twitter, Instagram. I think that's my handles right there. Twitter and Instagram. Yeah. And I perform at Upright Citizens Brigade in Los Angeles.
Are you working on more stuff for your YouTube channel?
I am more writing a couple different sitcoms, actually, that I'm looking to finish up here in the next couple weeks. So I'm on the same train with you that there needs to be more sitcom comedy.
Can you let me know if you get something up and running? Would you be starring or just creating?
Well, I'm sort of in like the preliminary process here to get the ball rolling. With getting some meetings and hopefully to make it. Certainly, I would love to star in any or all things I write.
I need to know when this gets off the ground.
You will absolutely know via our hashtag that we are going to create.
Yeah, a burger is the new hot dog. Oh my god. Okay, and I think the final thing I want to finish on, which I don't have written down, but I think it's a good touch, is because you seem like a bit of a, would you say you're a bit of a nostalgic person? You like having that, like recreating that kind of environment you were in as a child and experiencing it as an adult? Like working with Leslie Nielsen, would you say you're that kind of person?
I would say I'm a nostalgic person. I would agree with that. Yeah.
So what's the most nostalgic thing that's happened to you in your Hollywood career?
Wow. Most nostalgic thing that's happened to me in my Hollywood career. I was a big Knight Rider fan. And so when I first moved to Los Angeles, this isn't necessarily career related, but more just nostalgia related. I was like a week into living in Los Angeles, and I was walking down the street on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City in the Valley, and I was standing in front of a pet store, just looking at some fish in the window, and some, like there was like some like turtles in the window. And I was standing with this girl that I was walking down the street with, and who was a friend of mine. She just wasn't a random girl I was walking down the street with.
Looking at turtles.
Yeah. I followed her to look at turtles. And so we were standing there looking at these animals, and then David Hasselhoff walked up and like stood next to us. And we were all looking at fish and turtles together, and then we turned to notice him, and like I think I yelped. I think I let out this not so masculine yelp, and he asked me if I was okay, and I told him I was, but I don't think I really was. And then he asked the girl that I was walking down the street with if he could have a cigarette, and she didn't smoke. He didn't ask me. I don't know why he didn't ask me, but he didn't. So that was an interesting Hollywood moment for me, because I was such a huge Knight Rider fan, and I loved Michael Knight, his character, and I was big time into David Hasselhoff. So that was a big nostalgic moment for me. Man, I wish I had a cigarette to offer him, but I don't smoke.
That just seems... So he pretty much walked up behind you, stood with you, you were surprised when you turned around, and he asked the lady who you were with if he can have a cigarette. Mm-hmm. She said she doesn't smoke, and he just walked off into the distance. Yeah,
there's a lot of unusual things there, huh?
Yeah. What happened? Did you buy a turtle?
No, there was no turtles bought that day.
Right. So how long was he standing there?
Because I don't like turtles, I do. I just couldn't afford them. Say that again?
How long was he standing there before you realized he was there?
I don't know. A couple seconds, maybe. Yeah. And I turned and looked, and it was him.
I don't know how to end this
Crazy.
interview on a healthy note.
Well, it's got to include hot dogs and hamburgers.
Okay, that's very healthy. All right, right. So the highlights of this interview have been you staring at turtles before you realised David Hasselhoff was standing behind you, salivating for a cigarette. We've also figured out that we have compared the Australian invasion of Hollywood to America's love of hot dogs and hamburgers.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know that you are going to start creating, within the next few years, a new sitcom that is based on food, based on the relevance of food to life, the comparison of food to life.
Food to life, yes.
Yeah.
I got to get on this immediately. I don't think the public should look for it in a couple years. I mean, look for it in like a couple weeks.
A couple. So, we just need to have like 2 pilot seasons per year. One in April, one in October. You need to aim for the October.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it, Brian. It's been fun. It's been different. It's not been like any other interview I've done before.
Well, I'm not like any other person you've interviewed before, Elaine.
I've got that impression already. That's good. No, that's good. I like interviewing new and exciting people with different interests and career objectives, with brains that are
this is great.
similar
So what
to
time
mine.
is it in Australia right now? What time is it there?
It is 11:07 a.m.
Oh my gosh, crazy.
Yep. So like the next day. So I don't even know what day it is. It's Monday today. Yep.
Oh wow. Yeah, we're so stuck in the past over here. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I hope you enjoy the next burger you eat and think of me.
Oh, I absolutely will for sure.